Is the God of the Old Testament angry and violent and somehow different from Jesus and the God of the New Testament? This is a question that is common. It comes up a lot, especially for people who have heard messages or heard stories about the Old Testament and maybe aren't overly familiar, or maybe you are familiar with the Old Testament. And there are just a lot of things in the Old Testament, we're talking Genesis through Malachi, that seem harsh, that make God seem a little bit more harsh than maybe we think Jesus is. And it creates this maybe apparent contradiction, at least on the surface. So a couple of examples of this. One would be the death penalties that are instituted in the Mosaic Law in the Old Testament. So there were lots of offenses that were punishable by death. And these seem really harsh to us, specifically in our current cultural context. So things like homosexuality, things like adultery, even like very rebellious children. And there's even a story about where they weren't supposed to touch the ark when they were crossing over this river, and one guy reached out and touched the ark and he died on the spot, right? It just seems really harsh. We also have things like the Canaanite conquest, where God tells the people, hey, go in and wipe out everybody. I want you to take this land, which means killing all of the people that are there. And this is hard for us to make sense of sometimes. Why would God be like this? Or why would he allow this? Or why would he command this sort of thing? It seems at odds with the gentle and lowly Jesus. So how do we make sense of this? Okay, so a few points to maybe help you think through how to resolve this seeming conflict. The first would be that even though there is lots of judgment in the Old Testament, and maybe some things you would find as harsh, God is also extremely gracious and extremely patient all throughout the Old Testament. He endures much sin. He's constantly promising and wanting to bless. So he's not vindictive and just a petty tyrant. Like he wants what is good. He wants people to do right, and he wants to bless them and provide promises to them. And so God is gracious. When he reveals himself to Moses, it's one of the things he says about himself. The Lord is gracious and merciful and forgiving sins, and blessing generation after generation after generation. So God, all throughout the Old Testament, there is the judgment, but there's also God's grace and his promises permeating throughout the Old Testament. Okay, second, we often put Jesus in this box, or the New Testament in this box, that it's all about grace and love. Now, yes, absolutely, we see the culmination of love and grace at the cross, and Jesus inviting sinners in. But Jesus spoke of hell often. It was a very much a recurring theme of his about judgment. And there's lots of hard passages, if we're honest with ourselves and read the Gospels, or all throughout the rest of the New Testament, that judgment and mercy are right there together. All right, point number 3, all of the Old Testament, it may seem harsh or sometimes disconnected from what we see in the New Testament, but the Old Testament is one continuous story that's leading up to and finding its fulfillment in Jesus. So the same God who's promising certain things in the Old Testament and delivering judgment is the same God who's bringing forth Jesus Christ to save sinners. So the Old Testament is not where God was angry and then all of a sudden God flips the script and becomes gracious. No, it's the same gracious God that is planning for the salvation in Jesus right from Genesis, right from the very beginning. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, I think the way to process some of the judgment and what seems harsh in the Old Testament is that we need to gain a good understanding of the seriousness of sin. So sin is really serious. It's a big deal. And we often don't treat it seriously. And what you see in the Old Testament is God treating sin very seriously. So all sins, from lying to rebellion to murder and theft and adultery and all the rest, are really serious. And we are guilty of so many of these sins. And when we can see sin for what it really is, how terrible and horrible it is, and how it is a treason against God, and how it's ruinous to his creation, and it's an act of defiance against him, it's only when we have that appropriate grasp can we then begin to understand and sympathize with why God is a God who also judges, even though he's a God of grace. So if we put these together, I think it can help us make sense of what seems to be harshness or judgment in the Old Testament and understand how that fits together in the full character of God.